Stafford, AJ Green, Marquez Pope, Reggie Brown, no Sean Marino.
Welcome to another podcast episode of the Herschel Talkers. We have been on vacay because there hasn't been much to talk about since late April from the G-Day game. But we've got Big Sean on the phone here, working man. He's on the road. How are we doing today, Big Sean?
On the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again.
There he is.
I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing good. Hey, working man. Swig a beer for the working man, as Stone Cold says.
That's right.
As you know, it's that time of the year again. It's about actually tomorrow is going to be 3 weeks till Georgia plays Appalachian State, and we also play just got the whole first week of college football. It's the
hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah, can't wait. It's been a slow grind through the summer, but to me, it's the second Christmas time of the year.
Yep.
Well,
that's right.
Yeah, we'll jump right into it. Georgia, I believe in their 6th or 7th practice so far for the summer. So we'll jump right into it. What do you think is maybe the two big question marks going into the first game or going into summer camp? And from what you read or heard, how do you think they're doing? Maybe the different position battles.
Well, I think that, if we can kind of group one group together, I think question mark number one is the offensive line.
Yep.
I think that was probably our biggest Achilles heel last year, and so we brought in an influx of bodies, and with recruiting pundits are to be believed, talent as well, and so having those guys come in and step up and kind of shore up the holes in that offensive line is just really going to, I think it'll be huge for our season this year. I guess if you're going to add a second question mark in there, it's probably important. I think you're probably looking at Jacob Eason and whether or not he kind of takes the next step in his development. I don't think anybody questions his ability to, get the long ball to receivers, nor his, his clutchness in the fourth quarter. But, he had some issues last year with accuracy and, his middle passing game. And then I think also, I don't know if he just gets bored or, what it is. There were, I think, some issues with, just inconsistencies with the receivers not really being on the same page, again, for that middle game. So I think you got both accuracy and, I think, cohesion if he's going to take that next step. You've got Fromm there. I don't think Fromm, unless Eason gets injured or, really just, screws the pooch, is any probability to start. But I think having somebody who's as talented as he is in there pushing him, helps as well.
Yeah, transition into that, since you did mention you start out with Jacob Eason and then Fromm. One of the big thing is, even though everybody probably knows what the answer is, with Bryce Ramsey kind of making a late decision to come back for his 5th year. I know not the greatest on paper, but he does have experience. I mean, would you redshirt Jake Fromm because he could give you that kind of 5th year because he's got a similar build, good head of, he's basically, as they said, he's a southern redneck version of Aaron Murray with 2 inches taller. Really
right,
good. But would you redshirt is basically the question.
No, just because I think from what we've seen from Ramsey, he's got all the tools. He just doesn't really, grasp the mental aspect of the game. Maybe he doesn't have the vision or whatever it is to really kind of effectively lead the offense. And so to me, the backup quarterbacks are really only one play away from being the starting quarterback, right? And so you need somebody in there who can move the ball and be effective. And I think that from what at least I saw, again, I know it's only a scrimmage or whatever, but from what I saw, I think Jake Fromm's that man that can do it.
Yeah.
Now, granted, maybe you look at redshirting him if, not familiar with all the rules there. If he doesn't really see the field, maybe you can redshirt him then at the end of the year. But again, at this point, I don't see the point of putting a red shirt on him if you're going to have to yank it anyway.
Well, like for example, talk about I think App State's going to probably be maybe closer game within 2 touchdowns. I mean, hopefully blow them out, but I got a feeling they got a pretty stingy defense. Notre Dame, they'll be in there the whole time pretty much. But that Samford game, them being probably a lower tier team might, I can jump up on them hopefully. I mean, I don't know if you're up, 42-7 in the third, something like that. Well, you got the game in hand. Do you throw him in there and get him some experience, or you get Ramsey in there? I don't know. It's just kind of like it'll be a, question mark call, because I think he's the kid. I don't think he would be a great NFL prospect. And, by no means he's going to be a Brady but I think this kid's got the potential to be, a good or a great SEC caliber quarterback. It'd be great to have him for 5 years and him learn the system, and you're basically grooming him for the future. And then also, you do kind of run into, if we do by chance get this Justin Fields, we'll talk about recruiting later for 2018, that, you're going to have, Eason probably going to be gone after next year, hopefully, because he's got a lot of hype around him. And then it's going to be, you'll have some depth with Justin Fields, kind of like a Deshaun Watson type. He's going to battle it out with Fromm. I mean, you can look at it that way. But I don't know. I agree with what you're saying, but it does get you thinking, though, with Bryce Ramsey. And you do have 3. For a while there, the spring, you're basically like, all right, we're an injury away from having a true freshman again. Hadn't even taken the snap, and then you had a bunch of walk-ons because spring looked bad. But then when Ramsey came back, it kind of gave you a little bit of ease,
Yeah, it gave you a little bit of hope there.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, again, I still think it comes down to, you want the best player, best, backup quarterback possible out there. And so, to me, I think that's Fromm. Ramsey, I think just being the 5th-year senior, and, I guess there's some mentoring ability there in terms of how you handle your business that he could probably impart upon, both Eason and Fromm. But beyond that, again, I think you need the best player possible behind Eason.
I guess you got to go back to you redshirted Murray. I guess a lot of people go back to this same situation. I guess that was at the tail end where Joe Cox was the man that year, and then you had Stafford. Is that what it was? I'm a little rusty back when he came in. What was the reason? Is there the reason why they could have put him in there? But I mean, it was great for him in the long run because he got to look at the the playbook and everything. But I guess if you really go back in time, Aaron Murray's probably better day one, better than Joe Cox, right? I know that Joe Cox has been there a while.
Possibly. I don't necessarily know if he was or not, but I think that Joe Cox is probably one of the most criticized quarterbacks in Georgia history. I don't really know that all of it's necessarily fair because I think he was light years better than Ramsey as far as just being a basic game manager and being able to get the ball to the receivers. I think the problem was that both due to the lack of running game and the lack of defense, he was basically asked to win every game in a shootout.
Yeah,
and that really wasn't him.
And I would take Joe Cox over 2 years ago Grayson Lambert as well. So I'd probably take him over Grayson Lambert. Better arm.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and rolling into, I agree with the defense. I agree with the offensive line is one of the biggest question marks. So as of now, even though I was reading a little bit today, Isaiah Wynn actually missed practice again. I guess it was yesterday, and they got a scrimmage tomorrow. So he's been out with some undisclosed sickness, which could be good in the long run. But it's basically eased Andrew Thomas, the 4-star, who you've talked about several times, has been under the radar, probably the best guy to come in the class. I know Isaiah Wilson was a 5-star with more accolades. But you always said Andrew Thomas is going to be, your best lineman coming in that 2017 class. So as of it looks now, it's got the 5 have been Andrew Thomas, Ben Cleveland, which is probably one of the most popular names beside McCole Hardman, probably from the 2016 class. Everybody's always like, "Where's he at? Where's he at?" He's getting a good look. I think he's making strides. Lamont Gilliard, I think, is going to be definitely your center. He's always safe. You got Solomon Kinley's making strides, and then Deshaun Sims. And then, you got Wilson in the rotation. So how do you, from what you've been reading, how do you think the offensive line? I heard they're hopefully they should be improved, or at least they're a lot bigger from last year.
Well, and that seems to be what they're saying, right? I mean, it seems like they're competing hard, and that they're going to play, I guess, the best quote unquote 5 or 6. It seems, right now from what I've heard is that Sims is, I guess, with Isaiah Wynn being out, Sims has flipped over to the left tackle spot. Thomas is playing left tackle. I think right guard Solomon Kinley, and then right tackle's Ben Cleveland. Again, if they can get it done, great. I think, again, the big thing is just making certain that left tackle spot, to me, is shored up so that Eason's got he's got some time to throw the ball. I think the interior line as well, just making certain they can open up some holes. It seems like they're pretty happy with what they've got on the inside. And, they say that they're out there competing at the tackle spots or whatever. I mean, from what Kirby's saying, and again, I haven't watched anything, it seems like he's got quiet confidence in the offensive line so far.
Yeah, and I heard they're playing pretty well, and then I've also heard that they have been going against the ones, and they said you got Roquan Smith and Trent Thompson wreaking havoc over there. So I mean, when they do struggle, you're going against some small SEC type guys,
Oh yeah, and that's the other thing too is probably just practicing against guys that are that good is only going to make you better because it's not like you're necessarily going to be facing. Week in, week out, guys that are that good.
Yeah.
No disrespect to any of our competition, but again, Trent Thompson's all SEC. You got a really deep, experienced, and talented defensive line. Linebackers, especially on the inside, are incredible. So yeah, I mean, you just kind of have to think that's only going to make you better.
So similar to Eason, because I know everybody thought, I think Kirby even realizes all right, this is going to be your man, year 2, year 3. We're going to have a lot of growing pains, and in the future, you might have had to struggle and go 8-5. Could have won a couple more. But do you think that the sooner that you put your Andrew Thomas, your Isaiah, Wilson, your Ben Cleveland's, like your nucleus, like your future, you kind of ease them in there, and go through growing pains with them? Do you think that's the best thing, or do you need to go with, experienced offensive linemen? Because seems like more guys you get SEC experience, it's going to be better in the long run. You might have to struggle a little bit, but it'll be good, in 2018, 2019. Do you agree with that?
I would agree from the standpoint that the faster those guys can develop into the players we need them to be, the better we're going to be. I mean, going back to Isaiah Wilson, I mean, from what I've heard, we're kind of third team right now at right tackle, and so it might kind of be a situation that's similar to Ben Cleveland, where a lot of people were wondering why Ben Cleveland wasn't playing last year. I mean, is he going to be a bust, whatever, whatever, and so it might take Isaiah Wilson a little bit more time to develop. I feel like if Ben Cleveland has progressed to the level that we need him to, and, he kind of lives up to that 5-star billing, that probably eases it some. To me, it's just they've got to play better in pass protection on the outside, and then they've got to also, they've got to be explosive and violent on the inside to open up holes. So, I mean, in terms of whether or not the sooner we get them in, the better, I don't think it's necessarily the right way to look at it. It's just we need them to develop sooner rather than later, just because I think it makes our team better.
Yeah, speaking of that, I was listening to the podcast today, and it looks like, I forgot his name. Who's the JUCO transfer? I know his last name's Hayes. What's his first name? Is it DeMarcus?
Yes.
DeMarcus Hayes. I heard he's kind of been, I hate to say the bust, JUCO. I mean, they thought he was going to come in kind of similar to Tyler Catalina and plug and play, but he's kind of been a forgotten name, and Kirby even came out. Good thing about Kirby, you got to like it, is he doesn't initiate maybe calling people out, but I think when you ask him, he'll give you a true evaluation. He doesn't run around. He basically said, Deshaun Hayes, DeMarcus Hayes, I'm sorry. He plays well indoors and in some of the, what do you say, indoors or more, I don't know, more cooler, but he says when you take him out there in the sun and everything, he kind of breaks a little bit. He basically says he needs to get more mentally tough. I don't know what that meant. So it's almost like the guy doesn't have a lot of heart. I don't know if he's just adjusted to the SEC or adjusting to playing in Georgia. But anyway, just him saying that didn't sound great. I mean, maybe he can improve on going with the practices, but I kind of feel like he might be a forgotten guy, and that was just a body that came in as a transfer. But basically, his name's hardly he hadn't been mentioned at all.
Well, right, and I kind of read the same thing you did. And he played in the spring, and he didn't necessarily look particularly impressive then. Again, I know it's a scrimmage, right?
Yeah.
And so it's pretty much one practice out of however many they have, but just I didn't really see anything about him then that really stood out. The other thing, too, is even though he was kind of a four-star guy, it wasn't like he was necessarily made out to be all-world or that he was even the best tackle coming into this class. I think that just when you had Wilson, you had Thomas, I think there was hope, hey, this is even, more depth. This guy could probably play some too. But, I think that when you go back and read some of the recruiting reports as well, it was more, I think the probability was is that his better or more probable role was going to be one of a role player, maybe somebody who could kind of pinch hit for you, but, from what they saw, it didn't necessarily look like he was going to be, locked down left tackle either. So,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I think we got burned last year with, Tyler Canalita coming in. Of course, Sean's always thought he was terrible, and I was getting towards the end of the year, I was like, yeah, this guy's terrible. I think that's all we had for him to come in from, Rhode Island. He was a big body, but he just struggled.
Right, and, it's just about kind of having that quickness, off the line to be able to effectively pass block and leverage and all that other stuff. He just didn't have it. And, I'm not even going to necessarily, bash the kid. I'm sure he's probably given us everything he had, but just, at the end of the day, if you're not effective, you're not effective. Just being objective about it. He just wasn't. And, they've got to get better there. And you can't necessarily, put all of the offense's woes on him. I know a big kind of sounding, a big theme for my sounding board is always, I think I probably focused quite a bit on the pass protection, but, the interior of that offensive line was not very good last year either. I mean, they just could not really effectively open up holes for the most part. And, some of that's on, those guys that are still there as well. I'm sure you had some depth issues there, but, Isaiah Wynn is a left guard, not very good. And now I guess he's your number one at left tackle or whatever. And, I guess if he's quick enough in pass protection that, at least you have it there. But you need those other guys on the inside, to be able to kind of open up holes and just be more dominant than you've been.
Yeah, I think you're going to be a lot bigger. I mean, I think Solomon Kinley's 6'5", 6'6", 340, big body. Ben Cleveland's a monster. 6'6", 6'7", like 340. I just think they're a lot bigger. I think last year Georgia was a little smaller than usual. I think they got pushed around a little bit. They were like 290, 300. Every now and then. But these guys are like monsters.
That's right. It's like we're going from Todd Martin to Big D, Damian.
There you go. Hey, the Serbian Express.
Exactly. That's what we'll start calling them.
I guess the other, from what I've been reading, from Georgia's defense, which I think is going to be much improved, even though last year, if you look at it statistically, top 15, top 20, which is great. But to be, from a good to a great, that maybe the only question mark is going to be there's not that lockdown corner in the secondary. You got some great athletes, maybe kind of like a Dominique Sanders that's a ball hawk. Aaron Davis has been a pleasant surprise 5th year. But I guess that's what I want to focus on next is what do you think about the secondary and how can this be a top 10, top 2 or 3 or top 3 SEC defense? When they can go out and win a game for you. Maybe Easton in the running game struggling, but they can be a stalemate and shut down a team. You think that's who in the secondary you think can stand out, or what you've been reading, or any of the new guys?
Well, I think that in terms of having that lockdown corner, I think Parrish is actually pretty damn good.
Yeah.
He's very physical. He doesn't leave much stuff
space between him and his receiver. And I think Baker kind of gives you some big playability. I think he's good enough. He kind of would get burned occasionally or whatever, but then there was also times where, he also kind of had big playability. He didn't necessarily that would make up for it. Like, I believe he was the one that punched the ball out of Jalen Hurd's hands in the Tennessee game last year, which was huge.
Yeah, that was.
Because if Hurd scores there, then, I don't know that it's kind of that
Hail Mary pass to win.
Exactly. I don't know that Eason's drive at the end is really all that meaningful if you get another score there. And again, it's hard to know because you don't know how the rest of the flow of the game goes. But he's kind of got big playability. It seems like you've got Dominic Sanders back. His thing is being more consistent. I feel like there's times where he plays well and makes some plays, but then there's other times where I don't know if it's just simple talent or what it is, but where he'll just kind of beast it on it. So I think shoring that up, and with that too, you're looking for the freshmen to like Gibbs and LeCount and some of the other ones just to be able to step in and just kind of help contribute as well. I'll tell you too, in terms of the defense making that next step up, there's two other things that I think are probably just as important, if not more so. One of them being that when a team gets you down in the red zone, you may not be able to prevent them from scoring points, but you got to keep them out in the end zone. I mean, when we would get down there, it was just we were kind of a sieve, so to speak, where we were pretty much getting 6-7 hung on us every time. So you got to shore that up some. And I think related to that, probably some of that is the offense doing better, being able to keep the defense off the field some to get rested. So if they get in some kind of sustained drive,
I agree.
They're able to be healthy and rested at the end of the game.
Yeah, and then from what I've been reading, that this could be maybe the front 4 or 5 could be one of the best in the SEC. Do you agree with that? I mean, it's you got Ledbetter, Trent Thompson's a beast. I think he got all his medical stuff cleared. We got Rochester. I mean, pretty good depth on there on the defensive line.
Yeah, and you got Carter and
Bellamy.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of depth there, I think, and so. And maybe some of it, too, was even though we had a lot of young talent last year, it was still young, and it takes those guys some time to get adjusted to the game as well. So, I think that the talent is there for it to be a great defensive line and a great defense as a whole. It's just, it's about kind of taking that next level up. And,
another guy. Another guy's saw notes here. That's really stand out and I heard he's been a leader. I've heard really good things about that Tyreek McGee. I believe he was a 3-star. Kirby's been really praising him a lot, and I think he's going to maybe even start or play. I believe it's that defensive back position. So he's a sophomore. So he's one that's, I think he's kind of physical, kind of broad, kind of built. They said so. That's another one that's kind of come out of nowhere. Been hearing good things about him.
No, yeah, I've heard that as well, and that's again another one where it can only really help you. Again, the more effective players you have on a team, and especially at different positions, ultimately the stronger your team is. And so, the more those guys we can have step up and contribute, the better we're going to be.
And I feel like J.J. Reed, the transfer, so it's like all these new names. And I think Kirby kind of building that whole Alabama mantra that, depth, and think you're going to be able to roll guys in and out. And I don't know, I just think that the defense is going to be maybe a whole lot better. They won't gas out, which I thought strength and conditioning last year was a lot better. It could have been Scott Sinclair with the new strength and conditioning could have been great. So I'm excited about defense. Like even Chip Towers said, he thinks this is going to be like old school junkyard defense. Thinks it's going to be one of these where they can keep you in all the games. So I'm excited about the defense. And another question mark, which I think it's improved on, we talked about it at spring game, is the wide receiver position. Who, in your opinion, do you think will be that go-to number one wide receiver? Like, we gotta go get one. You got a 2-minute drive. Who do you think maybe they could go to, or is going to be the man this year? Yeah, to.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't necessarily know if there's just simply one guy. I think the guy coming in who's probably the quote-unquote unofficial leader of the group is probably Javon Wims. I mean, he's the senior. He has good chemistry with Eason. You also got Riley Ridley, who caught, several big balls last year, and has that chemistry as well. There's just so much depth, though. I mean, I think Vaughn looked great in the spring. Nico Hardman looked great in the spring. Even Tyler Simmons, although he had a drop in I think a fumble, he looks much improved. And then, you're hearing about, and his name escapes me, but Swift's teammate, who we got from Pennsylvania, who they've got high praise for as well.
Mark Webb.
Right, Webb. And so, I think that the wide receivers are probably the one position they're not all that worried or concerned about, because I think the talent's there, and you've got playmakers at a lot of different positions. It's just, can Eason get him the ball? Can the offensive line give Eason time?
Hey, you're forgetting about to my opinion, the number one. I think he's going to have a big year. He's bulked up. He's become a leader. Well, I just say hopefully he will. I think Terry Godwin is going to be your best one. Actually, I think he's going to get the most receiving yards, maybe not touchdowns, but he's going to be your most receptions and receiver. I'm expecting a really good thing. They said he got really good chemistry with Eason. He bulked up a lot. Kirby said he's showing a lot of heart and he's really growing up, so I'm expecting really big things out of him. Kind of like maybe not your number one, you're throwing like, fly patterns or fades too, but you're kind of inside, he can move the chains receiver. But yeah, I agree with him. It's going to be, Wims and Godwin. Of course, we were really excited about J.J. Holloman, but I hope this, nagging hamstring, he's kind of been working on the sidelines, doesn't bring him back. We don't have Ridley the first game because of suspension. But yeah, and I think the way you mentioned, I think Hardman's going to be your X factor in that slot. They're just saying he's been juking people in practice, so really excited about him. It's almost like a lot of options. You just got to figure out which ones you want to focus on.
No, that's absolutely right.
And another kid that's really come out, I think they said he hasn't dropped the ball in the viewing periods, is this transfer Akil Crumpton. They say it's IMAC 2.0, about as quick. He's going to be on special things. I think he's even like 2 or 3 inches tall, like 5'9". They're really excited about him. They just said he's one of those just get the ball in his hand and let him run around, which I would take another IMAC, So I think that was a great recruiting win, dig out by Kirby.
No, I'd agree. Again, I think that just, the receiving core, I think is there. The athletes are there. It's really, I think, that offensive line in Eason. I mean, you hear all the time football's won and lost in the trenches, and, I think Georgia kind of has, unfortunately, shown you what an offense can look like when they're not effective.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily all of them. I mean, there were times when Eason had, I think time to pass, but just, whether it was a chemistry issue or whatever it was, just overthrow somebody, would throw behind them, and so kind of shoring that up. And then as well, too, from the offensive line standpoint, just you're going to need a running game and threat, the dominant running game, I think, to kind of pull those defensive backs closer to the line of scrimmage, I guess, for support. All that's going to help as well. So, I mean, the better that offensive line does, I think that, the better off we're going to be as a team.
Yeah, I agree. And on to running backs really quick. I've been hearing great things about DeAndre Swift. One guy close to the program who's a great evaluator said he's a bigger, stronger, more physical Sony Michel, which Sony Michel's always been great too, but I think he's going to be your third string guy coming in. I know Brian Harrian's solid, and as we've talked, I think Holyfield might be the one, maybe kind of the one left out of the rain, as they say, and there's probably going to be some attrition. and we'll talk about later in recruiting. We got Z White coming in, so I mean, just like even if you had a guy get injured or blow a knee out, God forbid, I mean, I just feel like you just got a guy who can just jump right in there. But I mean, I guess I've been hearing really good things about DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, I have as well, and you love having that depth. The one thing I like is the fact it seems like he gets yards after contact, which again, and running the football is not like a kickoff return where you're going to have lanes of space. You know what I mean? I mean, you're going to have to kind of be able to make chicken salad out of chicken what at times.
Yeah.
Got to fight through tackles and arms and everything else, and so that's just a talent and a skill that you're going to need to thrive, and he's got it. So.
Yes, sir. Yeah, now we're going to roll in. We'll talk a little bit about recruiting 2018. Are you excited?
Recruiting, baby.
Hey, the Coots.
The Coots.
The Coots, as he said. So, currently, I believe, from Jess Sintel, who's the guru there, I think we have 7 currently. I know for a while there we were really, really, really hurting. But we've made some strides in June was good, and a little bit in July. But I think we're sitting at right around 58th in the nation and 13th in the SEC. Of course, our number one, our biggest is Zamir White. Did you hear about his game last night by chance? He had his first game already?
No, how did he do?
Actually, here's the thing. All right, so you hear, all right, so how'd he do? 118 yards and 1 touchdown. And you're like, all right, decent game. But then he tells you that's only on 3 carries. I guess they blew the team out or whatever, but he had, in his first carry, he took it to the house like 50, 60 yards out. So I'll take 3 carries and 118 yards any day and a touchdown. That's a great start. But I don't know why they didn't. Maybe they didn't need him, but that's what his first game was against. Was it Lynchburg, North Carolina? So I thought that was great. He had a good run. But real excited about that kid. He was a great get. The rest of them are Caleb Tanner, 4-star from Georgia. Offensive guard Warren Erickson, 4-star. Got another cornerback, 4-star Chris Smith. Owen Condon, offensive tackle. Javon Beckton, 3-star. So it looks like the rest of them are 3-stars. You got Rashad Wild Goose Jr. I heard they really like him at safety. So what do you think about the class so far? And then who's your gets or your wish list that you hope for 2018 from what you've been reading?
I mean, obviously having Zamir White is huge. I like that. Obviously, some of the decommits and things like that are a bit disconcerting, and I think just the fact that Kirby just hit it out of the park so well last year, maybe kind of maybe expectations higher than what were necessarily reasonable to sustain. In terms of players, you want, or you want Slayer or Sawyer, however the heck it is you pronounce it. You want Trey, his I think number 1 offensive lineman from the entire 2018 class is an offensive guard. Trey Hill, who supposed to be a great center, again, because it's all about depth, to quote Kirby, and these kids are only there for 3 or 4 years, so you're going to have to continue to be able to recruit. Houston, Fields, rather, I think is a big get for us, too. I guess signed to us in Florida State. But again, he's number 1 overall player in the class. Kind of gives you the run-pass option that you don't necessarily currently have. And, obviously, the more kids in they keep, the better it is. I mean, kids like that are only really going to help you if they pan out. I think the one area where you'd like to maybe see a little bit more depth of progress is at the defensive tackle position.
Yeah.
It seems like we're, kind of a bit underwhelming, I should say, from a recruiting standpoint at that position. And, again, I mean, you're probably looking at Trent Thompson being gone next year. Atkins will be gone due to graduation.
That Devontae White kid, he didn't get in. He's going to go to JUCO college, so that kind of hurt a little bit. We got all the recruits in for 2017, but he could have been good. I heard he was, South Carolina wanted him real bad. He's a 4-star.
Right, and so that doesn't help either. And so again, that's just you'd like to see a little bit more depth and progress there, particularly because it's not going to be all that difficult to sell.
Yeah.
Again, it's not necessarily right now at the level that it was at this time last year. I do think we had a very good July. We're supposedly going to have a couple of other commitments, if rumors are true.
Next week?
This month as well. Yeah, and so, it seems like we're making up for it in July and August. And so, if we can get Sawyer and, Hill and Fields, that's big. Sawyer's kind of indicated that he'd like to see us improve as a team in the win-loss column. And, I've always maintained that, there are some kids that really want to come into a program and, that's already competing for championships. They don't want to feel like it's on them solely to turn it around.
I think his relationship with Andrew Thomas, he's going to maybe be, I'm sure Tech's been calling him, hey, how are you doing there? How are you getting treated? I think that's going to be a really big relationship too. Georgia goes 10-2, maybe wins the East. Andrew Thomas says, hey, it's great here. You can come in right away and play. Maybe year 2, year 1. I think that's going to be big too. Both of them being from the same high school.
Right, agreed.
Yeah, I think next week reading here, I don't know if you know anything about these guys. Sean's always really good on recruiting. So it looks like announcement on August 17th. I'm probably going to butcher his name. 4-star defensive end, Azir Alarier. Have you heard anything about him? That could be your defensive end or tackle you're talking about from Marietta. If he signed, he would be your second highest rated behind Zamir White, which you saw. I think he's a high 4-star. And then on the 19th, actually Mama T's birthday, 4-star wide receiver Kyrus Jackson. If you've heard anything about him from Peach County. So those would be 2 good gets from what I hear. You know anything about those guys? All right, Sean, we got one last question for you. I want to get your thoughts on Kirby going into year 2, which is a pivotal year for him, and also your thoughts on Jimmy Chaney and Mel Tucker, and maybe short-term going into long-term for the coaching staff.
It's helpful. He's more than just simply a body. He's somebody
sure. So,
right away. And then,
all else aside,
the wide receiver as well. He shows pretty
Kirby Smart is, I see a guy that brings a lot of intensity, bringing, everything he has day in, day out, to the program.
Be a contributor.
His enthusiasm seems to be super contagious. Certainly was with the first recruiting class. And, although that's not necessarily ranked
good players with more
remotely as high as the one last year, I suspect, based on what we've seen from early commitments for 2019, that he's
looking
doing
at
the same
the
thing.
Rankings,
In subsequent years, I think the one fallback deficiency that Kirby has.
Sports Illustrated having around 15 or 16.
I think he was so
you like where they are. I kind of like to where not that top 10 with a lot of pressure, kind of like in the middle of the pack.
He's having kind of a bit of a learning curve when it comes to the offense and the offensive line. That may never have come with additional time or anything like that under Nick Saban's staff. I do think though that it does kind of require you to have some pretty competent offensive coaches, which clearly somebody like Dave O'Sweeney has and has had at his tenure in Clemson. The offensive staff of Georgia, I think Del McGee's been fantastic on the recruiting trail and really getting both Harry and Holyfield to play up their potential last year. I think that Cooley, a wide receiver coach,
I think
probably as critical a guy
as they're calling on Dog Nation on the East. I think it's going through Jacksonville this year. I think that's going to be a huge game.
Which should be
it's always that swing game.
The number of bodies
down to
bringing in a wide receiver.
Florida again. And Florida only having, I think it's because of the schedule, 3 SEC away games.
Staff is going to be
so I just think we got to win that
coordinator
one
spot,
Florida.
Quarterback coach Jim Chaney, and then also, although this may not be the most popular thing to say, but Sam Pittman, the offensive line coach. Jim Chaney,
Georgia win one.
Exactly.
So that's going to be
pretty well, hashed out and expressed.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I like being kind of under
some questionable play
radar.
callings, like running, IMAC
or
a reverse on a.
I think early odds were looking about two
Vanderbilt.
touchdown between 11 and 14 point I've seen
some of the
spread for the App State game.
Just the inability to really kind of put up any kind of points last year. Some of Eason's struggles, it didn't really seem like he made a whole lot of progression over the year. Now, not all of that may have necessarily been on, Jim Chaney. I mean, we had noticeable issues along the offensive line, and receivers, and we're dropping a lot of passes, or just not getting open, or there's chemistry issues there. But
next one too, because I guess if you come
clearly, people want to see points on the board. They know you're going to need it in this day and age to win football games. You got so many rules designed to protect offenses that defenses are pretty much playing at a disadvantage. So if you can't put up points, you're kind of at a disadvantage.
Really how everything else goes.
With the offensive line,
I'm kind of hoping, like what you said, I'm kind of hoping maybe we're up by 3 to 7 at halftime, making it close.
They've seen a lot of the bodies he's brought in.
Win maybe
the fact that he had a pretty good resume
31-17,
people are like,
this guy's touchdown just because he got more athletes.
Just
win something.
It's kind of the much needed shot in the arm that our offensive line needs. There were some things last year.
I take that.
I don't really know developmentally. None of us do developmentally where some of these other guys that we had on the roster last year were at. But given that we've got Isaiah Wynn, who's right now our number one left tackle, there's some kind of question marks there. We both remarked, and you'll attest to this, Trey, that there was a point in time, I believe it was in the South Carolina game, where
I guess we'll
Tyler Catalina, who was starting left tackle last year, got hurt, and when Isaiah Wynn slid over into that left tackle spot, our offensive line
one
played
of your favorite.
Could that have been a coincidence?
Talk about
possibly.
Wanted to see,
but
how do you see
at the same
Kirby's
time
progression from year one? He went through a lot of growing
probably
pains
one of
in
the most
year
unproductive
two.
left tackles in college
football.
football. I'm not trying to criticize the kid on a personal level. I'm sure he gave us absolutely everything he had. But at the end of the day, he did not contribute at a level that is needed to win, national championships or, to compete for conference titles. I mean, that's just what it is. You can't really sugarcoat that.
Right.
But if you have Isaiah Wynn, who last year just struggled noticeably at offensive guard in terms of being able to blow people off the line, just to be able to open up holes. If you're playing him at left guard last year, right, and now all of a sudden after we've had this huge influx of recruits, supposedly the best offensive line class in Georgia's history, and this guy is now better than all of them, at least at this stage of the game, is playing left tackle. It really begs the question of why wasn't this kid playing left tackle last year? I mean, we saw flashes where it looked last year like, he was clearly the better pass blocker. And so it just kind of begs that question of, is it one of those things where, they were kind of in love with a certain body type of Catalina or whatever else it was and were just too stubborn to change? Or what the deal is. I don't necessarily get it. And I'll be the first to say, too, Jim Chaney and Sam Pittman and Kirby Smart would not be the first ever set of coaches, and great coaches, if that's what history, has in the cards for them, that made kind of a critical mistake on the coaching. Made kind of a critical mistake in terms of who they decided to start. There two other perfect examples are, Phil Simms and Bill Parcells. When Bill Parcells became the head coach of the Giants after getting promoted from defensive coordinator, he didn't really like Phil Simms all that much. Thought he was kind of a bit of a pansy, for lack of a better term.
Right.
Started a guy named Steve Bruner, and they proceeded to go 3-13, I believe it was, and had the third overall pick. Bill Parcells almost lost his job after that year because of it. But Bill Parcells recognized the mistake and went with Phil Simms, and the rest is kind of history, 2 Super Bowls later. Another example, to those who want to say that most of Bill Parcells' success is really the credit of Lawrence Taylor and Bill Belichick, is Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson kind of had a big bias towards Miami guys when he was at the Dallas Cowboys, and really kind of tinkered around with Troy Aikman. And actually, it wasn't even necessarily the quarterback position, limited to like Steve Walsh. Steve Irwin, who was quarterback here for the Panthers for at least 1 year, if not more. Troy Aikman got hurt in 1991, I think, towards the end of the season. And even though he was healthy enough to go in the playoffs, Jimmy Johnson kept starting Steve Irwin, and it really kind of messed with Aikman's head. That could have been a year where maybe they would have went, for a world title. I mean, there wasn't really much they added next year in 1992 when they won it. But really Jimmy Johnson kind of recognized that mistake. They needed to stop, screwing with Aikman's head, let him be. And again, the rest is history. So, kind of that tirade or side story aside, you don't, if it was just an era with, personnel or whatever else, certainly Sam Pittman, Jim Chaney, Kirby Smart would not be the first in the history of coaching to have ever done that or to have been the first to ever overcame something like that. But I think that the key is you got to recognize that you made the mistake or mistakes and, correct them because it's the only way you're going to go forward. I'm really, interested in seeing how the offensive line does this year and, kind of how the offense looks. I think that probably as much as anything, that offensive line is really going to kind of be critical to everybody else's success. I mean, the more time they can give Eason in his progressions, in all probability, the more opportunity he's going to have to kind of set his feet and, have accurate fundamentals to, correct that mid and short range passing game. And, the more dominant that offensive line is, the more holes they're going to open for the runners and the more of a threat that is, which kind of, prohibits lines from being able to, or defense from being able to just simply, pull back in coverage and, handle the running game with a 3 or 4 man drop. So, to me, that offensive line is really going to kind of dictate, what happens with this coaching staff. I think that if we kind of struggle again, especially after a really good recruiting staff or a really good recruiting class, I should say, then yeah, there's probably going to need to be some changes somewhere along the line, probably at offensive coordinator spot and maybe an offensive line coach. So, I know that probably sounds cynical and demonic, but that's what it is. I mean, you can't kind of have a lot of those same mistakes. And probably, Georgia, even though we had this influx of talent, we don't necessarily have the depth that a lot of other great programs like the Ohio States and the Alabamas and some of the other ones do, to where, if you maybe you're playing the second best guy in the rotation where, the impact's de minimis, we really have probably enough for one great starting unit at this point. And, you're going to have to get those calls right. Because that's going to really dictate between you going 7-5 to 9-3 to maybe, 7-5 to, 11-1, somewhere in there. That's going to make a big difference for you.
Yeah, all those are great points. Definitely agree with all those. One thing I did want to mention, looking at Isaiah Wynn's, just looking at it on paper, I'm no coach or anything. He is a senior, but he is 6'2", 302. And I know you got the big kid, 5-star Isaiah Wilson coming in. He's like 6'6", 6'7", 340, 350. So I'm just wondering, is Kirby maybe going safer and going with someone with more experience than he has started? But that's just, to me, for SEC standards, a smaller left tackle, supposedly your best lineman on the team. But from what I've been reading, and, we've been talking about Isaiah Wilson, I think Kirby even said this week, everybody's asking about him, said he's great indoors on the practices. He said the other day the word he kind of struggles and he wilts. He wilted out there in the sun and the heat, which, him transitioning from way up in New York or New Jersey, it could be just the transition's really bad. DeMarcus Hayes has said the same, that JUCO college is better indoors. They get out under the sun, 90-something degrees in Athens. It's humid, as you know. I think these guys are maybe breaking a little bit, and he might just go with the kid that's more experienced, maybe got a little more heart. So
I think that as far as Isaiah Wilson goes, I think that
he is a freshman, true freshman.
Well, and I think that really everybody, in the recruiting world, and I think the fans' expectation was that he was going to end up at right tackle, similar to Ben Cleveland. He was kind of more of the Mahler type tackle that was going to maybe handle the slower defensive end or rush passer and really kind of be who you ran behind.
Yeah.
I mean, and the other thing too is that kid's coming from Brooklyn, New York, where I mean, it gets hot there in Brooklyn, I'm certain, but the humidity level and in Georgia is just going to be a different level. It's going to take some time. And as far as the heart thing goes, I mean, fatigue will make a coward of you, point blank, period.
Yeah.
And so if the conditioning level isn't there, his will to win is going to eviscerate a little bit. Same thing for DeMarcus Hayes. So, yeah. I mean, if that's just a simple conditioning thing, yeah, that's just going to take time to work out. Kirby really can't necessarily control that, nor can Jim Chaney or Sam Pittman. You just hope he continues to kind of work at it. But, he was never really, I don't think, projected or slotted to play left tackle. He was going to be your right tackle type.
You think Andrew Thomas is going to be the future left tackle, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that's, Kirby said that his future, is at left tackle. And, I mean, he seems like, from the conditioning standpoint, he's actually transitioning pretty well. I think with Isaiah Wilson being out with said undisclosed illness, that he was playing some at starting left guard. I think as far as Isaiah Wynn at left tackle, yeah, he is a little bit undersized. I think that, you can probably get around that a little bit, though. I mean, obviously, he does have some disadvantages in that, one of the things you want is, or one of the things you like is a guy whose arms are a little bit longer, because it means he can engage the pass rusher a little bit sooner. But, I mean, at this point, anything's going to be an upgrade over last year, as long as they can just effectively do something to kind of get in the way of, a pass rusher. And truthfully, I think that I wouldn't be surprised if, at some point down the season we're seeing, more, especially I think if, you see Isaiah Wynn kind of get abused and maybe that offensive line get exploited, if you're going to end up seeing, Thomas starting at left tackle. Because, again, I think that kid's definitely our future left tackle. But, yeah, I mean, Kirby might be being a little bit safe. It might just be, too, that between all those other guys right now, that, maybe that's just who they kind of feel, the most comfortable with. But, I'm kind of hard-pressed to believe that, Isaiah Wilson could have progressed that much, in a year at offensive tackle to where, he couldn't have been better than Catalina last year. So, the other question is it really that he's gotten that much better and that they just whiffed, in the evaluation stage last year? Or is it that maybe these offensive linemen are kind of struggling a little bit and are not really at the point where Kirby's comfortable letting them start? I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, I think Chaney, I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but last year was really bad. I think he's going to be short-term. He might be with Georgia, but I don't think he's going to be your long-term answer. And then with Pittman, I'm starting to question him a little bit. Like maybe he's, the Ron Zook or Will Muschamp recruiting. He can get all these guys in here, but is he able to, like you said, let these guys progress? Because I'd rather have a guy maybe less on recruiting, but he can change you from a good player to a great player.
Like Will Friend.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think we're missing him a whole lot under the radar.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too is that, it almost begs the question, and, this probably sounds a little bit, suicidal or, overly, pessimistic or, dramatic, but let's just say that we don't particularly do well next year and, the fans are starting to grumble. Let's say Colorado State isn't doing particularly well.
Yeah.
Bobo loses his job. Do him and Will Freen come back? I mean, I think Kirby's smart enough to recognize, hey,
come on back home.
Yeah, to both of them, right?
Yeah, you can tell them, like, hey, you'll have Jacob Eason your junior year. You got Jake Fromm as a, Aaron Murray clone. You loved him. I mean, it looks like a good setup. Maybe give him a bump on salary. I know you got 5 kids. Come on back home. Who wants to live in Fort Collins, Colorado anyway?
Exactly.
But yeah, he might want to be a head coach. So maybe that's his dream, and I don't know. He could look for maybe a lesser job or something. But yeah, he has another 6-6, 7-5. That's three straight years of average records there at Colorado State. But who knows? But yeah, hey, good observations there from Sean, and we'll be having some more episodes or podcast episodes coming up the next couple of weeks. And thought that was a good one. And less than 3 weeks, so it's counting down.
Yeah, and I guess we'll, time will certainly tell. I mean, I'm sure everybody's looking forward to it. I will say this, that, I always love a Bulldog win, but, even a Bulldog loss is a heck of a lot more, interesting to analyze and angst over than just nothing at all on a dog days of summer.
Exactly. All right, thanks for joining us again, and we'll be coming up with more episodes in the next couple of weeks. The Herschel Talkers, and we're out.